Welcome back in 2024 to Life in Black and White, which brings us to EFF, who was also a third party in that debate of what we watched. They have already released their manifesto and they've gazetted a couple of things, which is very interesting because, as you said earlier when we were looking through this information, they're acting as if they're already in power.
Because they're taking themselves a little bit more seriously. They're not saying, and please, by no means, this is just stuff that we've now read, right? So it was interesting to note that everything gazetted by the EFF had no mentions of the ANC, whereas that cover page of the DAs has, the ANC hasn't done this, and then there's a picture of Fikile Mbalula, like, please don't be a bitter eggs. I want to know what you're going to be doing. You know, as a voter, you're turning me away by being petty. And I understand that politics is petty, but tell me what it is that you're going to be doing.
We didn't mention, I just realized, the leader at the moment for DA, who seems would be the person then to come into power, John Steenhuisen.
Is he going to come into power?
Well, I don't know, because remember in Parliament, they also vote who the president is. We don't actually vote who the president is. It's a parliamentary vote.
Okay.
We vote for a party. So just to break down, I feel like we really are telling the story backwards. Welcome to the journey of our conversations. Hopefully you have been following somewhat. There's no script, there's no structure. We are just discussing. In South African politics, there are 9 provinces, as we are aware. And we vote, and you don't vote for president. So in America, you vote for a president who then is affiliated with a party. Here, it's the other way around. We vote for a party and then they choose
their
president. So that's also important to note, but it's important to also see who is maybe leading the charge, because most likely is they will be the president. So at the moment, ANC Cyril Ramaphosa, squirrel,
cupcake.
And then John Steenhuisen seems to be the leader of the DA. He's the premier, or whatever it's called, who Helen Zils was at one point.
Yes.
Before she was told to step down for racist comments.
Side-eye, and that's a DA trend as well. If there's one thing they're consistent on, the ANC, we've seen corruption is a consistent theme there. And if there's one thing that's been very consistent within the DA is racism.
Yeah.
Also, why are all your top party party leaders who are Black, why do they always resign? Why do they always resign? I want to know.
So I'm just asking Jamie to pull up
who John
Steenhuisen is. So we can tell you a little bit more. See, party leader of Democratic Alliance. So he has been in politics from the tender age of 22 since 1999.
Oh, wow.
He was elected for Durban City Council, for DP Council for Durban North. He's always been affiliated with the DA as far as it seems.
It makes so much sense. He's a Durban boy. I think for our next sections, we should do a deep dive on our political leaders, because then we can tell you more.
So we're just we're fluffing you up to get more. Basically just trying to bring you, once the manifestos come out, I think then we talk about the leaders as well. So this is just a rough overview because everyone's talking about the elections coming up. ANC, can you please tell us when the elections are happening?
Why is there
still shady?
That is shady. That's shady because in the previous years,
it was already announced.
It was already announced by now, whereas now we're heading into February. No, we're heading into March. It's the 17th of February. We're heading into March. We still don't have a date announced. We would like to know what is happening with that.
So conspiracy theory on that is that they're only going to announce it at the last minute, so then other political parties don't have enough time to rally support.
Oh, to campaign? Okay.
Conspiracy theory? Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. Because we all know that ANC at the moment in polls have lost their majority. They're under 50%.
And when you look at these top 3 that we've mentioned, so both the ANC and the DA have gone down, declined considerably, right? So there isn't any voter confidence in them. And then there's been a steady incline and increase within the
EFF.
within the EFF.
So on that note, let's go into the EFF. That scares me that they're getting some traction, that they're climbing in the voter polls, because I also do not trust Julius as far as I can throw him. There's also been corruption charges against them, corruption scandals that are coming out, gender-based assaults as well, and discrimination coming out. Even though that they are saying that they've got the best spread, there are allegations that are coming out. And what is that name of that city? Oh, I've forgotten that. Ekurhuleni. They are running that there. It's actually in the ANC coalition as well.
It's a coalition.
There's been an increase in crime in the area, and they said they were going to create jobs there. In the news lately, if you look, it says do not fall for job scams alert. So there's scamming in terms of jobs. So they're saying you'll get a job, but it's a scam. So I don't know if that's because of EFF or ANC, or just no one knows why that's happening. But there's been a big scam going across for job creation. So in their manifesto, if you look, it poses a lot of interesting questions to start discussing that are relevant, I think, to the South African landscape. But then the questions arise: how do you plan on doing this?
How do you plan to implement?
How do you plan to execute?
Because one of the most controversial tenets within those gazettes is the compensation, the land redistribution without compensation, and that sparked massive debate here this morning, and I think last night as well. It was this morning.
No, it was this morning.
That sparked massive conversation, and we all have varying different opinions. Regarding this topic. And then for context, our dear Matt is from Zimbabwe. So that conversation, that colored the conversation in a different way as well, and added a couple of nuances. But with that as context within the EFF, like, they're quite a polarizing party. You either hate them or you love them. Julius himself is a polarizing figure, hate him, love him, you're still going to be talking about him.
And the thing about him is he's very intelligent. People underestimate that a lot about him.
He's so charismatic
and exceptionally charismatic. He has really nice sugar-coated speeches, I think. Not sugar-coated, but it's like honey dripped or whatever,
Do we know that though? Because, and we can argue this with everybody, right? The only two parties who have ruled, right? And we can say two with the DA is because they've been, the Western Cape has been their stronghold for years now, and they've been ruling the Western Cape, right? The ANC has ruled the general majority of the country. So they have a proven track record of rulership.
Well, we need to see, because the EFF did win some areas. So I was trying to look up about the areas that they rule. Also, impossible to find any statistics or information. Well, not impossible, but very difficult. I suppose, I don't know if you have to type in the right keywords. Again, really would love someone
to help,
because I'm trying, and we really want to make this informative. But basically, you're going to be on the learning journey with us. We're not saying we know everything and that what we say is ultimate or it's finite. There's so many different things. There's different
so many opinions as well.
We just want to start sparking debate and for you to learn with us while we're learning. So I heard there's probably shouldn't name who it is and exactly their title and things, but from a reliable source that I spoke to this week, who is the director, and he essentially works for an international organization that looks at market trends.
Oh, you told me about me yesterday.
Yes. And in a highly reputable organization as well. We ended up having a very nice discussion for about 20 minutes about politics. And so this has also given me interest in looking up about Rise Mzansi, because he says that is a leader that he would trust and put his vote behind. So I'm very curious about that, because he looks at market trends, which then looks at socio-political factors, economic factors, leading to economic trends and markets, and what happens around the world and how that will affect the market. And he said the areas that the EFF run, if you look at them, they're in shambles.
Excuse me.
So I was trying to find evidence of that, because I don't want to go just on conjecture. But apparently they aren't run that well. They've been run on the ground, not much has improved there. So there is evidence of what they're doing in the small area that they have.
And also, everything that we're going to be delivering to you, we want to base it on fact. So again, with that chat of nothing, we obviously are going to get emotional about certain things.
Very passionate.
Very passionate. Yes, because we love our country. So it's, what's the word? We want to deliver things factually as well. You know, as spirited as our debates are going to be, they must also be based on fact, because we want to be delivering it to you while we learn and while you learn with us.
So in all honesty, I think we highly underprepared for this.
A tad.
I think we didn't anticipate how much it would take to research, which also makes me frustrated in why is it so hard to have this accessible information?
It's difficult.
That is the question that also comes up.
And the information that we're finding, especially those statistics, it's very confusing. Like we are not understanding how you're not making that palatable for the everyday South African. You know, why are those statistics not available to us? Why just those graphs, bro? I feel like I'm back in maths class.
In terms of like spending, it's taxpayer money. Why is there not more transparency? It's all of our money. Why is it not being shared? It's not like I'm asking for Sipo's banking details and her banking information and how she spends. No, that has nothing to do with me. That's her money. But what the government is spending is our money.
And you have every right to have a say about what is happening with your money, because you get taxed. You get taxed. So you have a say.
And it's also still the top 8% contribute to 95% of tax, though, or top 10%.
Whoa.
So that disparity, and then you get the ANC is going to be talking about their budget speech soon. Taxes are going to go up, so you're taxing the higher levels to pay for social welfare grants. We've had a discussion about social welfare grants. That's not doing anything for the economy. It's not stimulating the economy. It's not helping people. It's not pulling people out of impoverishment. It's helping them get by, if that even. It's not doing anything. So that is also another question that we'll debate, that we'll have another time about. But EFF, the land redistribution without compensation, what we were saying, it's a very interesting discussion because, like I said, my partner is from Zimbabwe and he was kicked off his farm. And then now they've looked at that farm afterwards and it's run in the ground. Those people who were employed by them all lost their jobs. It's like you have to try and like properly resuscitate the land that it was on for the farm. So you cannot just redistribute land and hope for the best.
But at the same
breath, it has to make sense. People, like if it's farming lands, people have to be educated on how to use the land, how to work the land, because you can't just say, here, farm. It doesn't just happen.
I have a differing opinion on this, and I think that this is the conversation that we had, right? There were people who occupied the land before, and they were kicked off the land with the Group Areas Act, right? They were just ripped off their land. They were never compensated. They're probably sitting somewhere with nothing in their pockets to show that they were the owners of that land. And they worked that land. No one taught them how to do that before that. So to say, it's like it's a double-edged sword. So now the person who's purchased the land, purchased it legally then at the time, right? Now we kick them off as well and we hand that land back. It's unfair for everybody.
Yeah.
The person who bought it and the person who got kicked off the land, because people have been working this land for generations.
Yeah.
So it's unfair to say, like, for me, I disagree with that. It's unfair to say that they're going to work the land into the ground. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it's also unfair to repossess somebody's land and not give them their money.
But that's why I'm saying how they do it, because you can't just expect an average Joe off the street to go and work on a farm. I would not know one thing about running a farm.
I know nothing about running a farm. But if it is your ancestral land, you deserve to be compensated for your land.
Compensated for sure. But then again, comes in, it's like, how can you kick people off the land?
How do you do that?
It's different if it was like 5 years after the fact that happened. But now, like you're saying, it's generations now. You can't kick people who've now also been there for generations. It's going to spark a whole thing. But then also we just watched a video now of Julia's in the Western Cape when he was doing one of his campaigns in 2022 talk, and you know, what bothers me is that DA, we know there's a problem with racism, but ANC, EFF always harp on also about racism, which I feel causes more of a divide as well.
But if you've lived it, that's a different experience. I think it's this is this issue that I had when we were at school, right? Is we always had these conversations about racism where it was like, oh yeah, well, all we do is talk about racism. People should just get over it already. And I know that's not what you're saying, but if a person's lived experience is based off the color of their skin, it's very hard to look at anything differently. Do you know what I mean? Because as a woman, our context in the work environment is completely different. A man will never understand. We were just discussing this yesterday where a friend of mine, so I almost mentioned her name, we were talking about how when you are a woman who works with men, I mean, there are men in your environment, you sometimes go back and you think, oh, sherbet, was I too friendly in this conversation? Was anything I did misconstrued? And it's similar when you're colored by a different skin tone, you know, because now I get to work, for example, I'm not saying that this happens, but the first thing that you have against you is the color of your skin. You're not taken as seriously. You know, now you're a woman, so there's that element to it as well. Like there are so many complexities that create the person that you are and how people receive you.
Spanner in the works. Do you not think that you said, you know, you're saying that you're not taken seriously because the color of your skin? Also, maybe, do you think it might have something to do with the EE and BE programs?
It totally has everything to do with that.
Good. Because now people on the assumption are thinking you're employed because you're Black, not because you actually deserve to be here. That's what I'm thinking. It then starts building that.
But they treat you like that.
But that's the thought as well, because now there's a push. I understand reflecting the economy and reflecting the populace. That makes so much sense. But then also at some point, I feel like the buck has to stop there and we have to focus on the fact that people also not educated in these areas, which happens to be like the majority Black, in these township group land acts where it's been redistributed because of land acts.
But then at the same breath, I hear you, right? Okay.
If we improve the education, slowly that necessity for EE to make a more kind of reflective work environment to the socio-political climate,
but what
through education, it would be better because then it's through merit and not because you're Black, you're employed.
But I have an issue with that because you find people who've been sitting in jobs and know every single thing about that company. They know it backwards. Do you understand? And every person that comes in with that degree is trained by that person. So we're saying by merit, they don't deserve to be there because they don't have a certificate and because historically, they were never going to have access to education. Like, what are we saying? Like, I look at it from that lens as well. There are people who don't have certificates who will never be a lawyer, for example. A lawyer is a bad example.
Let's look
at a factory, like a factory worker, right? You know everything about the running of that factory. You were there when the doors opened, right? You worked your way as far as you could work your way, but at a certain point, there's certain things that you cannot do because you don't have a degree, right? Then all these people come in and you train them. They learn from you. They know the very foundations of this place because of you, because you are the map, right? Are we saying that just because just because you don't have the degree, but you're smart, you know exactly what is happening within that company, that you don't deserve?
No, I'm just saying that it shouldn't be based just purely on your race.
But everything in South Africa is about race.
But I'm saying if we improve education from now, slowly that necessity for BE structures right now will naturally eradicate itself because people are educated and can, you know, come into these positions without the need of you have to employ X amount of Black workers. There will just be so many people available that it doesn't matter anymore.
We want that to happen, but will it?
If education improves, I think.
Yeah.
I know that we've got a big BE program at my company now where it's a big push. And I mean, I've been saying it for years to them. I was like, I have enough white people on my team. They laugh at me.
But are we saying, because the thing with BE is so like, I don't want to say that it's complicated. But
it is complicated though.
Yeah, but are we also, it's that thing of now you're employed somewhere and white people will look at you like you don't deserve to be there, and that you haven't worked hard, that you don't have an education as well, and they'll accredit that purely to BEE, when there have been known cases where white people also use BEE to their benefit. There are gardeners who own companies
that
they know nothing
silent
about.
partners, but that's what I'm saying, that causes all the issues. Anyway, this is not what we're having a discussion about.
Sorry, we're just going into a debate now.
So
welcome to our life.
We end up having like 3 conversations in one. EFF, in their manifesto, again, like reading out what they have to say, some of the things, it sparks really interesting questions that do have gravitas, I think, within the environment, within the...
What does gravitas mean?
Pull.
Okay.
There is reason for these questions to come into play in terms of the greater South African context. There's gravitas for them.
Okay.
We want to know the answers to these questions as well, but then also I want answers to the questions of how do they plan on implementing these things, these policies, because again, like that debate we watched last night, no one spoke about what they're actually going to do. There was no implementation plan. Okay, cool. So if DA gets more power, what are you actually going to do with it? And the guy was literally saying repeatedly, no ANC, no ANC. It's just like, but what are you doing?
Like a parrot.
It was ridiculous. So EFF speak about the land redistribution. That's when we got into the whole spiral conversation.
The fight was the same.
So we both, so the thing is, we both agree that there needs to be some form of, what's the words now? There is room for that debate to happen. It has grounds, I think it has merit to talk about land redistribution, because you have someone that you work with whose family lived in an area that was kicked off. They're still alive, still present, can still point out their home, but they've received no compensation for it. But then, so it's just, I want to know, how do they plan on redistributing land, and how are they going to compensate? How are they going to do these things?
And if let's say this comes to pass, right? What's the chat? Like, say this person doesn't want the money, but they want the land. Like, how are you going to facilitate? Because we also can't. The complicated thing with South Africa, and it's not complicated. The complicated thing with South Africa is that everything we look at, and we have to look at it, is going to come from a racial lens.
Yeah.
Because before apartheid, there was colonialism. We can't wipe that off magically and expect it to magically go away. People's homes were taken away from them. People were given different names that did not belong to them. You find a lot of people of color that have 2 names, for example, like my parents. My father's name is Christopher. He had to have a Christian name in conjunction to his name, his African name. There's so much that colors the lens of the average South African, whether it's the South African that lived during apartheid, and then the ones that were born post-apartheid. And now we have
like Cyril said, tin swallow.
Now cupcakes, sir.
The average South African now, tin swallow.
Sir, okay. We also have to look at South Africa with that lens, and we can't look at South Africa with the lens and like cover your one eye and look at it from a different perspective. You have to look at South Africa as a whole, and we want to have more of these conversations. Whether you agree with somebody or you don't agree with somebody, you want to learn.
You should have the debate, the discussion, not a fight. Yeah, and no one should kill anyone, like Julia said.
We're not killing people.
We heard it. That's also, again, we started spiraling. Goodness, where he was in the Western Cape branch for the council 2022.
It's very inflammatory words.
Very inflammatory words. He was talking about racism, which we have agreed that, in South Africa, racism is involved in everything, and race is involved in everything. But he said we should not be afraid to kill for revolution. So he is now masquerading, telling people, he was already singing Kill the Boer.
Kill the farmer, kill the Boer, yeah, I remember.
Kill the Boer. And then now he's saying at this council meeting that, you should not be afraid to kill. And he said kill a few times.
That brings me back to a memory that I have. We had a history teacher. We have the same history teacher.
No, we didn't.
Did you not get to be?
No, I had the other teacher. She was my favorite. She liked me very much.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so for context, I had the most phenomenal history teacher. She agrees. He's now our former school's principal, right? Is he still the principal?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. But we stand to be corrected. But he ended up being the principal. What an incredible teacher. Mr. B used to he loved teaching us about history and imparting knowledge, right? And he used to say to us, I'm going back to this point about what Julius is saying.
Okay.
He used to say that there is no clean way of reaching a revolution.
Yeah.
And then he even went as far as to say, I still recall, he said, the Nelson Mandela of now used to be a Julius Malema.
Interesting.
He said that obviously he would have had to be very militant at some point.
Yeah, well, he was in Mkhonto weSizwe.
Absolutely. And history has colored Mandela in a different lens in the way that we look at him, because again, we look at him like this.
Yeah.
We don't look at everything it took for him to.
No, he bombed buildings. I remember doing a report on him. Yeah.
Yes. So just hop on that point. I just recall that because Mr. Botha.
She's talking about fighting revolution.
Not yes.
We are now 30 years post-apartheid.
Yes.
The revolution is with the current corrupt government. I mean, but anyway, that's all nothing. So the land reform, we're back here again.
Sorry, guys.
Talks about job creation. Another topic that I think is very interesting. Free education sounds all wonderful and dandy and great, and like everyone should have free access to education in the world. But unfortunately, it does not. So my thing, he talks about higher tertiary education. My biggest issue with that is free higher tertiary education. Cool. But if people aren't even able to get to university level or stay in university, it's no point that it's free. Where the education should come in, there should be an improvement, and free education is primary, grassroots, so that they can cope. They should improve their education structure. They should increase the pass rate. It's like 30% at the moment, I think.
That can't be right.
I swear on my life. I will put it up here if I find it. I promise you, you'll see it here.
Okay, I'm disconnected from those stats, so I'm not well informed. Is what I'm trying to say. So
also we are slightly not as well informed about this, but like I said, my question is, how does he plan on doing this? How are the teachers going to get paid?
We want implementation.
I want to know the implementation question. How do you see this rolling out? How this is going to happen?
Tell me your corporate girly without telling me your corporate girly.
Your what?
Tell me a corporate girly without telling me a corporate girly. How do you plan to roll this out?
How do you plan to roll this out? The implementation. I want to see the strategy roadmap of this rolled out.
Sorry, that was funny.
Fair. There was one part. So I'm not a fan of EFF. I'm not a fan of Julius. I think there are other parties out there who probably don't get as much airtime, because Julius is a very fun character to watch on TV, much like Donald Trump, very inflammatory.
Guys, we must also refrain. People love charismatic leaders. That is why Jacob Zuma could land it up where he was. It's easy to look at somebody as a caricature. It's dangerous to look at them as a caricature. But there are people who are listening to those caricatures.
Exactly, because they're saying what they want to hear. He's speaking to the majority, and they're hearing this, and they're disgruntled.
The majority is poor.
Poor and disgruntled and unhappy, and they've seen no change for 30 years. But I still don't understand how they're still believing what the ANC is feeding them.
I don't agree with the no change for 30 years. We would not
minimal change, but I mean, like I know what you mean.
I know,
but it's not enough, is what I mean. They could have done so much more in these 30 years. They're still celebrating installing taps now.
100%.
But that's also, what I'm saying.
When we talk about the ANC, we can't get too emotional and say they've done nothing.
Okay,
that's unfair.
Well,
and I'm not a fan. Just saying, but that's an unfair statement.
But as I was saying, because now we're going to go on a whole nother tangent. We need to start streamlining these. We will improve. EFF, there's one thing in their manifesto that I do agree on, which we collectively, actually, including Matt, also agreed on. I'm not a fan of EFF. I'm not really a supporter, not a supporter of theirs. But talking about foreigners buying land, like putting a surcharge on that in some way, so this, disincentivizes them from buying up here, because also it became property is so expensive now for locals to buy. It's nearly impossible to buy.
Cape Town.
Big time.
Cape Town, where is the land regulator? Where are the property regulators in the city? Like, can we please have a small discussion here?
So there's one part in their manifesto which I do agree with, which I think, because then it's in the best interest of South Africans in general. The EFF government will introduce restrictions to foreign land ownership, land use rights, targeting specifically the hoarding of land by multinationals and billionaires.
100%.
Agreed.
Because we're seeing this play out within our city. I mean, it's impossible. People who own land make it harder for people, for ordinary citizens to actually live and partake within their city. Cape Town is expensive. And we're speaking specifically and primarily as Cape Townians. I can't speak for Johannesburg resident. I've never lived in Joburg, so I don't have context.
Joburg is much cheaper. I've looked. You can literally buy a house, a nice house, for literally like a quarter of the price you would what you would pay to buy a flat in Cape Town. The general like 2-bedroom flat is probably about 6 million rand in Sea Point. I've looked. I went and looked myself because we were thinking of buying. We are not. It's too expensive. For that amount of money, you can literally buy like a 4-bedroom house in a security estate in Joburg. In
and
Sandton.
A nice one. And also, Cape Town landlords, the audacity you have for a 1.5 milli bedroom, bro. 1 bedroom, by the way, with those gak kitchens and what's this, a carpet, and then your shower and your bath are in the same place. Are you joking?
I don't mind bath showers too much.
I mind. I do.
I don't I want a bath, but then Matt also wants a shower.
We thought we had a guest.
I don't know what that was. Anyway, we were talking about the EFF. This is getting to be very long. The EFF, like I said, these are 3 big players. We will mention them again just to talk and fact check, but we want to start bringing up other parties as well, so we can give voices to them, because it's so confusing. Who do we vote for? And especially now, they've just passed an Electoral Amendment Act in 2023 that individuals can run as well without being affiliated with a party. So now there's going to be even more people on that ballot. I'm not even joking. I swear I saw it said something like 200.
That's mad.
To choose from, which is amazing because it's a democratic society. So great that so many voices are getting out there, but who do you listen to? Who stands out? There might be smaller parties that don't have the money that the DA, the EFF, and ANC are all getting, because they're all being funded by private corporates. None of them can tell me that they're not. And private enterprise, again, another thing that should be transparent. Who is funding you? Where are you getting your money?
DA? We're looking at you here as well.
Yeah, all of them, all 3 of them.
I'll tell you why. Because remember when they made that big hana about who was funding the ANC at the time, back at the ranch, I think someone came out, their list of funders also came out. And that was a very biggie side eye, just saying, stop deflecting. We want to hear about you.
Yeah. And that's what all of these organizations are really good at doing. The EFF, though, I will say on their manifesto, they do list things that they have done and what they've implemented. Whether it's been successfully rolled out and continued to stay that way is a very different question. ANC, we can see it evidently, what goes on in the country. DA, we can also see. So, repurpose for this right now, we've been talking about a whole lot of nothing, I guess, but a whole lot of something and a whole lot of nothing. We just want to start getting people to question and look at things and start getting invested, because buying bread is political. Buying Coffee,
It's political.
it's all political. Your rent, it's political. Everything. So start thinking about that, and saying you don't like to talk about politics or whatever, it's very ignorant. Then you don't vote. You clearly are happy with the way things are. Then fine. Be that way, but then don't complain. But in the next episodes, we're going to be more informed. We're going to talk to you about smaller parties, who's kind of on the rise.
Yes, and we're going to try and be less confused by those bloody graphs.
Yeah. And we're going to try and not circle around so much. But we hope that the intention of it at first is to make you question. Start thinking about things. Look at what's going on around. Do not let the wool be pulled over your eyes and honey-dicked by Julius Malema. Like, just
don't be honey-dicked by anyone.
Don't be honey-dicked by anyone. But on that note, thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.